Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss some very interesting topics which are relevant to your recombinant DNA technology, but we have not discussed this in so details earlier. What is this? We are going to discuss here reverse transcriptase PCR and real-time PCR. Okay, both are in abbreviation called RT-PCR. Okay, both in abbreviation called RT-PCR. But RT-PCR can be of dual meanings. The first one is reverse transcriptase PCR. Second one is real-time PCR. Although there is a correlation between these two, still there is difference. So we should not confuse when you are talking about or discussing about or solving problems about this reverse transcriptase PCR or real-time PCR. First, we will go to reverse transcriptase PCR. What is reverse transcriptase PCR? Okay. First, you have to understand what is reverse transcriptase PCR. What is reverse transcriptase PCR? Okay. Now, reverse transcriptase PCR is, from the name you can understand what is reverse transcriptase PCR. That is, it is an enzyme called reverse transcriptase which is basically doing the PCR. This is an enzyme reverse transcriptase which is basically doing the PCR. Okay. What is the role of reverse transcriptase? Reverse transcriptase is an enzyme which converts RNA to DNA, which converts RNA to DNA. Okay, which converts RNA to DNA. Okay. So if this is used as reverse transcriptase PCR, you can easily understand what will be the template. Template will be RNA, and what will be the output? Output will be the DNA. Okay. Also, there if you distinguish or if we differentiate in reverse transcriptase PCR, there is, you can certainly differentiate these two. Like if you have a single RNA, a single type of RNA, that is RNA that is transcribed from a single gene, then we can do the reverse transcriptase PCR to have that particular DNA. And if we have the total mRNA, if we have the total mRNA of that particular gene, of the particular genome, I will say, that is of the cell, there is a total mRNA of the genome, we can also convert that mRNA to the particular DNA. Okay, we can also convert the particular mRNA, the total genomic mRNA, to DNA. Fine. Okay. So in both cases, this is called cDNA. In both cases, it is called cDNA. That is the complementary DNA. Why it is called complementary? Because each DNA is coming from mRNA. So since mRNA is the template or RNA is the template, it is called complementary DNA. Okay, fine. So cDNA. Now we'll see how this cDNA formation goes. Since we know the PCR now, we know that for every PCR or every polymerase chain reaction, certainly we need two things. One is the enzyme and one is the primer. So say this is your RNA template. Okay. So if this is the 5' direction, if this is the 5' direction and this is the 3' direction, this will be the 5' direction, and the reverse, this will be the 3' direction. Okay. So the say there is a sequence like ATTGCA. So if you give the primer TGCAAT, so it will bind to here as per their AT or GC pairing. Okay, there will be triple bond. There will be the AT or GC pairing. Okay, and after the AT and GC pairing, the reverse transcriptase will come to play and will take the polymerization to the end. So this one is what is formed is the cDNA. Okay, if there is only single RNA you take, then you get one single cDNA, right? That means against a particular RNA, you get a particular cDNA. That means you are getting a particular gene back. You are getting a particular gene back. But when you have the total cellular mRNA, when you have the total cellular mRNA, then in the total cellular mRNA, all the genes are present. Say in E. coli, there are more than 4,500 genes that is present in total cellular mRNA. In human, there are more than 10,000 genes. So that will be present in an mRNA. So for all the genes are located, all the genes are expressed, means all the genes transcript are there in your mRNA. So you have to synthesize all the gene back when you are making the total genomic cDNA. When you are making the total genomic cDNA, you have to get all the gene back, okay, which is transcribed in the mRNA. So if you have a single mRNA, if you have a single RNA, then it's easy to design the primer because you know the sequence of that particular RNA. But when you have this kind of your multiple genes together, when you have this kind of multiple genes together, then it is difficult to design a single to take a single gene and to make single primer and to add all the primers in the reaction mixture. Okay, to add all the primers in the reaction mixture. So now to solve this, how then we can design the primer and how can we proceed the reverse transcriptase? So the primer designed here is called either random hexamer or oligo DT primer. That means here no particular sequence of primer is added. Rather, random hexamer, that means 6 nucleotide or larger than that nucleotide base pairs are randomly prepared by solid phase nucleotide synthesis, and all these randomly formed nucleotides, hexameric or more than hexameric oligonucleotides, they are added in the reaction mixture. So all these nucleotides, they have all the permutation combinations in them. So as per their similarity with the particular genes, these random hexamers in the solution, they get segregated and attached as primer to the particular genes. Okay, they are segregated in the solution. Okay, and as per the sequence homology with the target gene, as per the sequence similarity with the target gene, they attach with a particular gene in the solution as primer. Okay, so you always remember that when you are doing total cellular cDNA synthesis from the total cellular mRNA, it is difficult to add single primer. So we always add random hexamer or oligo DT primer. That means there are random pairing of oligonucleotides so that they bind to the gene of their particular match, and then reverse transcriptase is there. It proceeds the reverse transcriptase PCR reaction. After that, we get back all the total genomic DNA where cDNA of each gene is present. Where cDNA of each gene is present. Okay. Next, so this is a brief about how the reverse transcript PCR is performed. Okay. Then, as per your primer melting temperature, you set the Tm or the annealing temperature Ta. We have already discussed how to calculate this and how to set the annealing temperature. Just set the Ta. Where the primer, you know how to tackle a PCR reaction. You just add this and You perform the reverse transcriptase PCR, okay, for several cycles. One thing we should remember that these cDNA afterwards, you synthesize cDNA, fine. These cDNA afterwards can be renewed. Okay, these cDNA afterwards can be renewed. I am showing you this slide. Okay, in this slide we can see these are the steps where the cDNA renewal and subsequent PCR is given. You see, this is the total cellular mRNA. This is the reverse transcriptase PCR, total cellular mRNA. Now you are adding oligo DT primer. Okay, so this is 5' 3' direction. This is 5' 3'. You are adding oligo DT primer. This is reverse transcriptase, so it is proceeding the reaction. So you get the copy of the cDNA. Okay. It may be total cellular mRNA. It may be one mRNA. It doesn't matter. You get the cDNA. Now, in the next step, RNase is added. In the next step, RNase is added. Okay, and this RNase, what it does, it actually regenerates, it renew the RNA. Why? Because in this step the RNA is bound with the cDNA. So to proceed to the next cycle of reverse transcriptase PCR, we need to free this mRNA. How to free this mRNA? You have to use the RNase. So what RNase does, basically RNase actually cleaves the bond between this mRNA and this cDNA form. The cleaves the bond. RNase means which digests the bond between the RNA. So it digests the bond between this mRNA and this cDNA. So it cleaves the bonds, and the cDNA is set free for further PCR. Now you have the cDNA. Initially you didn't have the cDNA. Now you have the cDNA. Okay. So now in this, if it is a single cDNA, you know the sequence, and you add the PCR, you add the tag DNA polymerase here, you add the tag DNA polymerase. Okay. Sorry. You add the tag DNA. This blue one is the tag DNA polymerase, and you proceed the normal PCR. So now the normal PCR is set. So this is the first one duplex DNA strand, double stranded DNA. So this is the first duplex DNA strand, and when you proceed the PCR for 1 cycle, 2 cycle, 3 cycle, 2 to the power 1, 2 to the power 2 to the power 3 copies that of DNA are getting produced as per the normal PCR rule. So if you carry this PCR for 25 cycles, so 2 to the power 25 copies of this cDNA will be formed. Okay, so now this is the amplification of cDNA. Okay, so the first step is addition of taking the mRNA as a template transcript, then adding the primer, then carrying the main reverse transcriptase PCR, then this renewal of mRNA by RNase digestion. This mRNA is used back here for next reverse transcriptase PCR. Now another part, the cDNA is taken, okay, and the normal PCR is carried out by adding the normal primers. If this cDNA contains the whole genomic sequence of a particular gene, you know that all genes are present. Now, among all those genes, say you want to have, say you want to amplify one particular gene. Say you want to amplify alkyl hydroperoxy reductase, one antioxidant gene. So you just add the primer of that and you carry the PCR, you will get it because the gene is already there. So that will act as a template. So you just do the PCR, it will come out by itself. This PCR is the reverse transcriptase PCR. Okay, this is also highly sensitive. Okay, if you have the RNA, you can do this. You don't need to have the DNA as template. From the RNA, we can do this. But the question comes now, why would you use cellular mRNA for doing a PCR? We have the, we can have the cell inside, there is the genomic DNA. Genomic DNA means there chromosomal DNA, that means that all the genes are there. So instead of using that, why would you use the cDNA or say mRNA as PCR? The question, to solve the question, we will again come back here in the next page. Now The thing is that why we do PCR? We do PCR because we need the gene for recombinant DNA technology. That means we want to code some protein or to use the DNA through some vector inside some cell, so that inside some cell it goes and express some protein or express its activity. So main job to use it recombinantly to express protein. Now it has there is a when you express the protein in prokaryotic cells, especially when you express the protein in prokaryotic cells, especially not only prokaryotic cell, also in eukaryotic cell. If you recall your translation, the protein translation chapter, you can recall that there are two things interspersed in a cellular DNA. If it is a prokaryotic DNA, then all the DNA is same. That means all the DNA is having that open reading frame. All the DNA is having the open reading frame. That means all the portion of the DNA can be transcribed. All the portion of the DNA can be transcribed and further translated to proteins. If this is the DNA of prokaryotic DNA, then all the DNA can be transcribed to protein. Okay, but when you come to eukaryotic DNA, two things are interspersed in the DNA alternatively. One is called exon and one is called intron. Exon and intron together form a DNA sequence in eukaryotic cell. But we know that exons are the coding sequences, whereas introns are the non-coding sequences. So when RNA is formed, RNA first formed from DNA, just like this. But when mRNA is formed, which finally translates the protein by pairing with tRNA, their introns are spliced out. Introns are spliced out by a process called RNA splicing, and only exons are coupled because we want only the coding frame here. So exons are coupled, which further translates it into a protein. So here one illustrative example is also there. Here you see exon and intron are altered. It is a eukaryotic DNA. So exons and introns are alternately arranged. And upstream, I have already told you in the genetic engineering chapter, there are also some regulatory part. Like promoter is there, one upstream enhancer. That means the regulators are there. There are a box called Tata box, which helps the RNA polymerase to recognize the gene. The gene sitting portion is recognized by the RNA polymerase because of this Tata box. Okay, and in the downstream region there are 3' UTR, means untranscribed regions that cannot be transcribed. Okay, so all these kind of things are present in an operon, that is on a total DNA operon, that cannot be translated into protein. Only the exons parts are translated into protein with the untranscribed region, because untranscribed region are the hallmarks of starting point and ending point of a gene. So introns are spliced out. In the initial transcript, they are present in the RNA. This is the 5' capping and this is 3' capping, the polyadenal tail. We all know this is present in the eukaryotic cell to recognize the ending point, the termination of the gene. And when the final mRNA is formed, it is formed only of the exon, these green regions. So if you don't have this region, you don't have this ORF. That means you don't code the protein. So now you think you want to express a gene into some cell. So you have to make sure there are no introns. You have to make sure there are no introns. But now if you want to clone the gene directly from the genomic DNA, if you want to clone the gene directly from the genomic DNA, what will happen? When you do the PCR, all exon introns will come. When you do the PCR, all exon introns will come, right? So if all exon introns are come, and if you clone the whole thing in a vector and want to express the protein will not be expressed. the protein will not be expressed, right? The protein will not be expressed because of this presence of intron. So you want to cleverly amplify the DNA so that you can have the ORF. So how can you do this? If you have this mRNA, and you start PCR from here, then what will happen? The gene what we will get will be only having the coding sequence. The gene what will have will be only having the coding sequence. If you do the PCR, you go reverse, you'll have the gene, which will only have the coding sequence. Okay, so CS, that means it will only be having the coding sequence. Fine. That's why especially when you do cloning of eukaryotic gene or eukaryotic DNA, it's always better to start the PCR from RNA. So we go for the reverse transcriptase PCR. Okay. Now we'll move on to our third part, where we'll discuss about real-time PCR. Now, what is real-time PCR? The real-time PCR is main objective is to measure the expression of a gene or genes in a quantitative way. Now, what is the main objective of real-time PCR? The real-time PCR adopts the technology of reverse transcriptase PCR in the first step. Adopts the technology of the reverse transcriptase PCR in the first step. There are basically two steps. In the first step, the reverse transcriptase PCR is performed to copy the whole cDNA from mRNA, and in the second stage, this is the and in the first stage, we do the reverse. There are two steps. Okay, there are two steps, one step and second step. In the first step, what is done? In the first step, basically your reverse transcriptase PCR is performed to make cDNA from mRNA. And in the second step, using this cDNA, we get the particular DNA out. Particular DNA or particular gene out. And when it is out in a quantitative fashion. It is out in the quantitative fashion. Okay. So it measures the amount of DNA gene in a cell in a quantitative fashion. That's why I have written to measure the expression of a gene in a quantitative way. Okay. So there may be two type of quantification. One is relative quantification. This one will be relative. Okay, this one will be relative quantification, not this is a spelling mistake. Sorry, not relative, spelling mistake. So relative quantification with respect to the expression of another gene. That means you are comparing the expression of two genes and expressing the one gene amount with respect to other. And in the second step, there is the absolute quantification. That means you, in a one scale, you are quantifying how much one gene is present. Just how much one gene is present. You are quantifying. Okay. So this is absolute quantification. Okay. Here, this is absolute quantification. But normally we prefer the relative quantification, not the absolute quantification, because we always want to compare one gene expression with other. Now the question comes, why you are interested in measuring the expression of a gene? Why measuring expression of a gene really matters? Because to elucidate the role of a gene or genes in a biochemical pathway. This is the one very, very important aspect where you can measure the expression of a gene, and this expression will give you the role of the gene in a particular biochemical pathway. In our drug field, in our medicinal field or pharmaceutical field, in pharmacology, what we deal with? We deal with the mechanism of drug action, right? Now, to elucidate the mechanism of drug action, what we need? We need the pathway of drug action. That means we need to know on which protein or on which enzyme or on which gene, on which ion channel the drug should work. Okay, those things act as receptors, and on which receptor or on which gene or which protein or which enzyme on which ion channel the drug should work. Now, how can you know that for a particular disease which gene will be responsible or which protein will be responsible? How can you know? This is the very mother concept of your medical science field or pharmaceutical science field that has evolved to drug discovery or pharmacology, everything. Mechanism of drug action, formulation of newer and newer drugs, discovering newer molecules, everything. For each chapter, first you solve the pathway, you know the genes which are responsible, and then you discover your drugs and administer them to act on those pathways. Now, so here question comes that you have to know which genes are responsible for the biochemical pathway. Now, how can you know the which genes responsible? Only the thing is that if under that particular disease condition or particular under the stress condition or particular under the challenge condition, if you find some gene amount which is called expression of a gene. Expression of gene means the amount of gene present at a particular time in a particular cell. So if you find that the expression of a particular gene is altered than a normal cell, if you find the expression of a particular gene altered from a normal cell, then what can you interpret? That definitely under that challenge condition or stress condition or disease condition, the gene is switching some biochemical pathway. If the gene is upregulated, that means if the gene expression is more under the particular condition, that means the gene is helping the pathway. And if the gene is downregulated or deactivated, or if the expression is low, that means due to the absence of the gene, the biochemical pathway is getting switched. Due to the absence of the gene, the biochemical pathway is getting switched. That means in the normal healthy individual, the gene was very important. That's why when you cutting down the gene level, when the gene level is cut down, is reduced, disease is coming. Okay, disease is coming. So this was a very beneficial gene then. Similarly, when a gene is activated or overexpressed or upregulated, that means what? That means that the gene is a toxic gene. When it was reduced, it was not causing any harm to the cell. But when it is getting expressed or when it is getting upregulated, when it is getting activated, amount is increasing. So it is doing some toxic manifestation in the cell, so disease is coming. So everywhere we need to see which gene expression is altering and how it is altering. And then we can design the drug accordingly, which can block the gene or which can activate the gene or which can restore the function of the gene, something like that. Or which can mimic the action of the gene. So in this way, measuring the expression of the gene is everything in our medical science field or pharmaceutical science field or biochemistry field to understand the every function of every biochemical pathways. Okay, in every physiological pathways. So I've given one example. For example, analysis of first example I've given analysis of gene expression between one diabetic and one non-diabetic person revealed that the expression of insulin was less in the second. Sorry, it will be not will be the second. It will be in the first. The expression of the gene, the insulin is less in the first. It should be in the first. Okay, expression of the insulin was less in the first. Thus, what is the conclusion? That means that a reduced level of insulin causes diabetes, because in the first patient, the insulin level was reduced. So, reduced level of insulin caused diabetes. So, we know insulin is a protein. That means depletion of this protein caused diabetes. So, that means the gene is downregulated. It is a beneficial gene downregulated. That's what is causing diabetes. Then we will move to the next slide here. There is second example, analysis of gene expression between one heart patient with an healthy individual reveal that the role of ACE2, we have already, I think you have already studied cardiovascular pharmacology, the antihypertensive one. ACE2 is a gene called angiotensin converting enzyme. This gene has a role with hypertension, heart. So there are a lot of drugs called ACE inhibitors, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors or blockers are coming into market, like captopril, enalapril, lisinopril, perindopril. All are very popular antihypertensive drugs. So one heart patient, if you compare the one heart patient and a healthy individual, you can see that ACE2 expression in the heart patient is changed. It should be expressed. Sorry, it should be expressed in the particular individual, hyperactivated or upregulated. Then calcium channel associated gene also, it should be hyperactivated, so that calcium in heart patient, what happens? Calcium channel is more activated. So contraction, heart muscle contraction is there. So heart pumping rate or heart pumping force is very much. That creates some problem. And MLCK, myosin light chain kinase, that is also a gene controlling hypertension or contraction. So these kind of, if you find this kind of gene expression is changed, that means you have to target these kind of genes either to block or either to convert to some other form, something like this. Next, there is another example. It has been seen from one hypercholesterolemic patient. Hypercholesterolic patient means the cholesterol level one is higher. Patient to one normal person, it has been seen that there is an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase is higher. That means what? This HMG-CoA beta hydroxy methyl glutaryl coenzyme, this enzyme actually forms cholesterol in mevalonate pathway. So if this enzyme is higher, then cholesterol is more. So hypercholesterolemia is there, fat is there. So what we'll see, the gene expression is higher in the person who is suffering from hypercholesterolemia. So drugs like simvastatin, atorvastatin, rosuvastatin, these are type of drugs are coming in the market when they see this kind of enzyme is there, and these drugs actually this enzyme inhibitor. So like this cytochrome P450 related genes, they are found that in the liver dysfunction patient, these genes are not well expressed. That means they are down, so liver metabolism is down. Then antibiotic resistance, when we culture one antibiotic resistance bacteria and non-antibiotic resistant bacteria, and if you compare their cellular expression of genes, you will see that beta lactamase gene in antibiotic resistant bacteria is higher. So you can what is understand that? That understand that in for antibiotic resistance mechanism, there is a crucial role of beta lactamase. Why? Because this beta lactamase gene cleaves the beta lactam antibiotics. Cleaves the beta lactam antibiotics. That's why those beta lactam antibiotics like ampicillin, amoxicillin, cloxacillin, methicillin cannot work on cell. So beta lactamase inhibitor should be given with a concomitant remedy of your antibiotic. Example, clavulanic acid is given as a beta lactamase inhibitor with like ampicillin. So in the market, you can see the clavulanic acid, ampicillin or amoxicillin combination. Augmentin is there, clavam, lactoclav, all is this there. Similarly, high oxidative stress. If you give a cell high oxidative stress, you will find this kind of gene SOD, SODA, which codes superoxide dismutase. CATG, CATE. Two genes code another important enzyme called catalase, antioxidant enzyme, and HPCF. This gene codes another important enzyme called alkyl hydroperoxyreductase. Okay, so these genes are antioxidant defense machineries. How people understood that these genes are part of cellular antioxidant defense machineries? Antioxidant defense machineries, because they challenge the cells under high oxidative stress and saw these genes are upregulated compared to control, compared to normal. So they found that these any cell, those have this kind of genes, they're part of their antioxidant defense machinery. Okay, so all these examples will give you an idea why measuring and cellular expression level is important. Okay, so that's why real-time PCR is highly relevant for our purpose. So you come to now next our presentation, that is the why real time. Now why it is called we are measuring the gene expression in quantitative fashion, so we want to measure some gene amount. So why it is called real time, not real amount? So I have given you one example to show you why it is called real time. Here actually what happens that since measuring, because gene amount in a cell is very small, so measuring a gene amount perfectly is very difficult. So scientists have converted the amount scale into time scale, and instead of measuring the gene amount directly, they are measuring some time factor which is associated with the gene expression. I am showing an example. Say this is a person, this is one point, and this is one home. Okay, this is one home. One home is situated 100-meter apart from that starting point. Second home is situated 200-meter apart from the starting point, and the third home is situated 300-meter apart from the starting point. Okay, so now say the person has a speed of 2 meter per second as its velocity. Say the person either walks or moves through a car, he has a velocity of 2 meter per second. Okay, so how much he will take the time to reach this home? 100 by 2, that is 50 seconds. How much he will take the time to reach this home? 200 by 2, that is 100 seconds. How much he will take the time to reach this home? 300 by 2, that is 150 seconds. That means more is the distance, more is the amount of road is there, more is the amount of road is there, the more time it is taking. So now if you do not know that which home is how far from the starting point, if you do not know which home is how far the starting point, if you look at this time data, you can easily understand which home is how far. That means which road is how long. If you do not know which road is how long, if you just see the time data, because the person is walking in any road with a uniform velocity, uniform speed. So velocity, there is no change. So only changing factor is what? If the time changes, only the changing factor is what? The amount of road is traversing. So if you look at this time factor, you can easily understand which road is how long. So you see that here is 150 second means this road is most longer. Then 100 second means this road is second longest, and this road is 100-meter means this road is the smallest. Okay, now instead of this 50 second, 100 second, 150 second, if you feel these values are very big, because instead of 100-meter to 1 meter, a road maybe 100 kilometer, 200 kilometer, 400 kilometer, 4000 kilometers, so this time factor may be very big, so you want to reduce this. So we take another scale, okay, as CT. CT, how it comes? Say if you take 25 second is one cycle. If you take 25 second as one cycle of traversing, then we can convert all this time factor into CT. So in the first case, CT becomes how much? In the first case, CT1 is 50 by 25. 50 by 25, so it is CT is 2. In the second case, CT2 is 100 by 25, so CT2 is 4. In the third case, CT3 is 150 by 25, that is 6. So now I have just reduced the dimension of the time scale into smaller dimension with of the time factor into smaller dimension of CT. So now if you look to the CT values, you can easily understand which road is more longer. This CT value 6 means the third road is the longest. The intermediate CT value is 4, that means the second road is the intermediate, and the first road is CT value 2 means first road is the shortest. The same concept now will apply in case of our gene. Now you consider this whole row, this one road as the amount of gene in a cell, which we going to measure through real-time PCR. So now there are 3 genes. Say 3 genes are expressed differently with different amount. Now you, instead of the percent, you consider it as a DNA polymerase, which has a uniform velocity of PCR or propagation in any gene. If you give any gene, it has a uniform velocity of propagation, polymerization. So take as a DNA polymerase. So now you convert it. Now if you do not know how much one gene is expressed, you just look at its CT values. And like I described, the CT3 is highest, then CT2, then CT1. Sorry. So you can understand. So if anybody asks you which gene is most expressed, you can see that CT3, from our calculation, CT3 is more expressed. When CT3 associated gene is more expressed, then the least expressed CT1 associated gene. So what we are doing basically here, I'm just doing a fundamental clarification of the concept. What we are basically doing here, we are basically converting the expression scale in a time scale. If you do not know the expression now, even if you do not know the expression now in even, we just measure the CT because we have the time clock. You can measure the CT and you can express which gene is most activated or most expressed, or which gene is least activated or least expressed. Okay, this is the fundamental concept of real-time PCR. Okay, now move to the actual real-time PCR. How CT is measured and what happens. Now in real-time PCR, basically, because in the machine everything goes on. In the machine everything goes on, and the machine has no brain. And the machine has no brain. Here in the previous slide, there was the person who can take the reading by one time clock because he knows when it is starting and he knows when he's finishing. But in machine, when you start, the starting point is there, but when it is finished, the machine cannot apply its brain and can put a time clock down. Machine cannot apply its brain and cannot put a time clock down. So what we rely on to give some signal to the machine when to start taking reading and when to start finishing the when to finish the reading, when to start taking reading and when to finish taking reading. So that signal is given by some reporter dyes or fluorescent dyes. This is the fluorescent dyes. When the PCR you start, you add fluorescent dye in the solution. And when you add fluorescent dyes in the solution, these fluorescent dyes gets incorporated in DNA intercalyx. That means double-stranded DNA. It gets incorporated in DNA intercalyx. So when the PCR cycle goes on like this, and the amount of gene are increased like this in the exponential, the 2 to the power n formula, to each of the gene, to each of the copies of the DNA, each one molecule of the fluorescent dye gets incorporated. So you see the amount of signal, the amount of fluorescent signal per cycle are getting increased. Amount of all these fluorescent dyes give signals, and the total amount of signal comes from the total amount of dyes incorporated in the DNA. Okay, because when the fluorescent dyes are incorporated in DNA, only then it fluoresces. Otherwise, when they are free, it does not give fluorescence. So only when they are incorporated in the DNA, they give the fluorescence. So until they're incorporated, they will not do the fluorescence. So fluorescence will come in from these entrapped dyes within the DNA interhelix. So as long as the PCR cycle goes on, the fluorescence dye incorporation also goes on, and the signal is going on, increasing. Signal is also going on, increasing. So then a machine can detect the PCR progress. Then a machine can detect the PCR progress. Okay, this is the first concept, how to make the machine read your PCR, when to start and when to stop. Okay, now second thing, we come to this graph. How to take the CT, to understand that we need to look to this graph. What is this graph? This graph is very much similar to a bacterial growth curve. That means this is the propagation curve of a DNA amplification in a PCR. This is a propagation curve of DNA amplification in a PCR, especially when you are incorporating some signal producing dyes. Okay, when the PCR is going on from here, but until it comes to a certain point, the machine cannot detect it, because it is below, this is below the detection point of the machine. So until it comes to the point where the machine thinks the PCR, the DNA amplification is not there. It is going, but machine thinks that the DNA amplification is not there. So when it is coming to a point like this, then only machine starts getting the signal from the fluorescence dye, because at that particular cycle there are sufficient amount of DNA copy with the incorporated dye, and the machine gets the signal. But after that also, the increase of the fluorescence dye, first it takes a very slow jump. This is called the uh, lag phase. This is called the lag phase. Okay, here the amplification goes but very slow. The increase of reading becomes also is very slow. But after a certain point, it takes a jump and increase exponentially. It increases exponentially. Okay, it increases exponentially. That means here for every increment of PCR cycle will gives you exponential increase of the fluorescence signal to the machine. So here what happens, here the machine starts getting significant amount of signal from the PCR reaction mixture. And in this cycle, in this portion of the cycle, in the exponential cycle, the machine starts getting significant amount of signal from the PCR cycle. And after a certain point, at the end phase of the reaction, when the amplification is very already is high, then if the PCR goes on one cycle more or two cycle more or three cycle, doesn't matter, the signal is already saturated, so the signal becomes almost saturated. Why? Because amplification has occurred so much at this point that then say this is like 30 cycle. So in the 30 cycle, if the amplification is so much that if you now it goes on to 31 cycle, there is you will not see, or the machine will not see much change in intensity. Or if it is go to 32 cycle, the machine will not see much change in intensity. So this is called plateau phase or saturation phase. So this is lag phase, exponential phase, and plateau phase. So in the exponential phase, the detection of the signal by the machine is very high. So we fix a particular point. That means we fix a particular point. That means a particular amount of DNA as our threshold value. Threshold value means when a machine gets signal at that this amount of DNA has been formed. When the machine gets a signal from the dye that this amount of DNA has been formed, it stops recording. Okay, it stops recording. Okay, this is called the threshold amount of DNA. This is called threshold amount of DNA. Okay, and the time required, this is the 1 2 3, this is the number of cycle. This is the number of cycle. And the number of cycle is proportional with time. Number of cycle is proportional with time. If cycle gets increased, the time gets increased. So number of cycle is a time scale measurement in a PCR reaction. Okay, it's a time scale measurement of PCR reaction. You are just, instead of time, as I shown you earlier, you are just taking in terms of cycle of a PCR. So the number of cycles required to reach this amount of DNA, the number of cycles required to reach this amount of DNA is called threshold cycle or CT. Okay. The number of cycle is required to reach this amount of DNA for any gene. For any gene, if you put in the PCR with this dye, the number of cycles required to reach this particular amount of DNA is called the threshold cycle or CT value, which is nothing but proportionate time. This time plot. Okay. So say I have now done the real-time PCR of 4 genes and I got this kind of curves. This is gene 1, gene 2, gene 3, G4. What does it mean? This means, you see, now say that this amount of DNA in this scale is 10,000, say nanogram or whatever, 10,000 nanogram or microgram, whatever. Okay. So say, so this gene, the first gene, how many cycles it is taking to reach this particular amount of DNA? So this is taking 4 cycles. Second gene, the G2, it is reaching the same amount of DNA, say in 5 cycles. The third gene is reaching the same amount of DNA in the 6th cycle. And say in the fourth gene is reaching the same amount of DNA in the 8th cycle. Okay, that means what? All the genes are same amount of DNA, but it's taking different cycles. Some are taking lesser cycles, some are taking more cycles. So what does it mean? It means that the gene which is taking lesser CT, which is taking lesser cycle to reach the same amount, it was initially expressed in a high value. I'm again repeating, the gene which is taking lesser cycle or lesser CT to reach the same point, that means they are initially expressed in a higher amount. So they don't require much time to reach the target destination. But the gene which is getting to the target point with a higher number of cycles, like 8 cycles or more, that means they're initially expressed less. That's why they have to take more time. They have to take more cycles to reach the same target point. I have given one mathematical expression here. Say the final amount was 10,000. Okay. Say say the first gene, say there are differential expression of genes. Say there are 4 genes. Say we have arbitrarily chosen 4 genes. Say one gene, we do not know the expression of the gene and we are going to measure this. Fine. Now say for the sake of our argument, say one gene is initially expressed in 100 nanogram. Say another gene is expressed in 2000 nanogram. Third gene is expressed in 3000 nanogram and fourth gene expressed in 4000 nanogram. Say we do not know, but it is expressed like this. So they all have to reach the 10,000 target point. Now, if they want to reach the 10,000 target point, how they can reach? How they can reach? You see, if the gene which is expressed in 1000 nanogram initially, they have to take 10,000 by 1000, that is 10 cycles. The gene which is expressed in 2000 nanogram earlier, it will take 10,000 by 2000, that is 5 cycles. The gene which is expressed initially in 3000 nanogram, it will take 10,000 by 3000, 3.3 cycles. And the gene which was expressed 4000 nanogram initially, it will be expressed 10,000 by 4000. It will take 10,000 by 4000, that is 2.5 cycles to reach that particular target point. So first, for the one gene, the CT is 10. So second gene, the CT is 5. Third CT is 3.3. Fourth CT is 2.5. Now, if you only look at these values, it is something like this. One gene is having higher CT like 10, and one gene is having higher CT like 2.5, and the two genes are intermediate. That means what? That means the gene. That means the gene which is having lower expression, the gene which is having the lower expression or higher CT, the gene which is having the higher CT, that means it is having the lower expression. That's why it is having the higher CT. And the gene which is having the lowest CT, the least CT values will have the highest expression, and accordingly they will arrange. That means the gene which is having intermediate CT, they will have the intermediate expression. So you can compare any two CT values, and they will compare any two CT values, and you can have the expressional comparison. You can have the expressional comparison. This is the beauty of real-time PCR. Okay. So see, if CT is more, the expression, this is one point you can draw, that if the CT, if for one gene, after real-time PCR, if you see the CT is more, that means the expression was less. And after real-time PCR, if you see CT is less, that means the expression is more. CT and expression has some inverse relationship. So that has been plotted in the next slide. You see that there has been a popular graph like this, where log of amount of DNA, that means expressed DNA, is plotted with respect to CT. Why log? Because if since this curve is exponential, so if you take the log, you will get this zone. You will get this zone linear. If you take the log, you will get this zone linear. So log of amount of DNA is taken, and this is CT. Okay. So if you see, as long as DNA amount is increasing, the CT is decreasing. That means if you have more amount of DNA, if you have more amount of DNA, if you have more amount of DNA, okay, if you have more amount of DNA, then you have lesser CT. If you have more amount of DNA, if you have lesser CT, say, well, I have here the DNA is less, so here the CT is higher. But here the DNA is more, so here the CT is less. This is one popular graph that you have to always remember. Okay. And the last thing what I want to discuss, that is, after all of this, we have to do one correction. What is one correction? That is, you have to put the concept of housekeeping gene. We have to put the concept of housekeeping gene. What is housekeeping gene then? Housekeeping gene, basically, it is a gene whose expression in a cell does not change in any condition. Why it is required? Because when you do the real-time PCR, you want to measure the gene expressional profile of different cell, but due to some various conditions of the cell under which is there, or different various metabolic pathways, the gene expression measurement is not always proper. Sometimes it's erroneous. Sometimes we cannot take the accurate value of the gene expression. So to correct this, we have to adjust the gene expression with the housekeeping gene. We have to adjust the gene expression with the housekeeping gene. That means if you adjust the gene expression with respect to the housekeeping gene, this is called normalization. That correction factor comes, and the erroneous reading taken by you will be nullified. The erroneous reading that is taken by the researcher or by the scientist or by the doctor or from whoever is doing, that is nullified. So you have to keep in mind the concept of housekeeping gene. This means it's this is housekeeping. The L will not be there. Only housekeeping. This L, no L. This is housekeeping gene. Housekeeping gene. Okay. So when you do the real-time PCR, you do everything for your gene, plus also do everything for your housekeeping gene as well, and then you normalize your gene expression data with respect to housekeeping gene. So this eradicates all the extraneous or internal errors during the reading taken due to various metabolic discrepancies or various instrumental errors or something like this. Okay. So this is the real-time PCR. It's how it is done and why it is so important in our pharmaceutical field for our drug discovery purpose, or for our elucidating the drugs mechanism of action purpose. Okay. So finally, I have given one problem here. I'm finally given one problem here. Okay. The problem is, see how you can solve this thing now. The problem is a child is suffering with hemolytic anemia, and the doctor did real-time PCR to find out the cause, why he's suffering from hemolytic anemia. And he found that the CT values he did for several genes. He did the real-time PCR for several genes and found that CT values of one gene, that is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. We have already, everybody has studied this gene. This is required for in glycolysis pathway or in pentose phosphate pathway. This works on glucose 6-phosphate. This gene is found that the CT values of glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase has become 29.22. For the anemic child, it has become 29.22. Okay, for the anemic child, it has become 29.22. Compared to the healthy child, he has seen that for the healthy child, the CT value, same gene CT value is 24.55. But for the anemic person, the anemic child, it has become 29.22. So my question is, what can he interpret? First. Second, how can he solve the particular problem? What is his remedy? How he can help the child to relieve from the disease? Now you can answer. See, the first CT, the anemic child CT is higher than the normal child CT. Okay, anemic child CT is higher than normal child. That means what? Glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase expression. Okay, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase expression in the sick one, that means in the diseased child, is lesser than the healthy one. Is lesser than the healthy one. The CT is higher. That means what? CT is higher means the gene is expressed low. That means glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, this gene has been expressed low in the sick individual. Okay, so the problem is basically glucose 6-phosphate deficiency. The problem is basically glucose 6-phosphate deficiency. This is a very common deficiency in our chromosomal allele. Many child suffers from this deficiency in their chromosomal allele. Okay, and this glucose 6-phosphate, what it does, you see in this graph, you see in this chart, actually in this chart, actually glucose first converts to glucose 6-phosphate by one enzyme called hexokinase, or hexokinase phosphorylates the glucose because it is a kinase enzyme, so it phosphorylates the glucose. After this glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, dehydrogenase means what? It takes out the hydrogen from here. It takes out the hydrogen from here and it converts to 6-phosphogluconate. In the pentose phosphate path, it converts to 6-phosphogluconate. Okay, and when it takes out the hydrogen out, the cellular pool of NADP plus converts to reduced NADP, NADPH. This NADP plus accepts this hydrogen and converts to NADPH. Okay, this NADPH supplies this hydrogen to oxidize glutathione to convert to normal glutathione. They supplies this hydrogen to oxidize glutathione to convert it to normal glutathione, because in normal glutathione, this oxidized glutathione, there is one disulfide bond like this. This is oxidized, means in normal glutathione what happens? There is SH. Okay, when oxidation is there, when there is oxidation, what happens? This hydrogen goes out and two GS couples to form GSSG. When there is oxidative stress inside cell, the GSH, this glutathione, itself gets itself oxidized, so that your cell membrane are not damaged. Your cell membrane or organelles are not damaged, because this is the main working role of any antioxidant enzyme or any antioxidant protein, that they itself get oxidized so that the cell membrane or organelle are not damaged. But NADPH here, NADPH converts the GCSSG to again GSH, because if it fails to convert, because if this conversion is not occurring, then the cellular GSH will be lost. All the cellular GSH will be depleted. All the cellular UH will be gone. So antioxidant defense will be collapsed and many problems will occur. This is a very common problem, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency in many inborn or many individuals. because whenever this glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency is there, this reduced glutathione level is very, very low in the cell. So the cell is susceptible to oxidative attack. So what happens? The RBC in blood also gets attacked by the oxidative species, and this leads to destruction of RBC. And when RBC destroyed, we get the hemolytic anemia. So that means the problem is glucose 6-phosphodehydrogenase deficiency or depletion. So now how he can make this one? How he can compensate it this one? To compensate this one, what needs to do? He needs to do the genetic engineering. How? He needs to clone healthy glucose 6-phosphodehydrogenase from healthy individual, put in a vector. If you are going to treat the child, you have to put in a mammalian vector and transform into the baby. It will automatically overexpress, so that deficiency, the glucose 6-phosphate deficiency will be gone, and it will, the normal cellular glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase level will be restored. The normal cellular G6PD level, the normal cellular glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase level will be restored. So this is the way you have to think, and you have to apply your recombinant DNA technology knowledge with all your PCR, real-time PCR, and your cloning, your expression, your vector, which kind of vector, what kind of expression you do, everything to solve the problem. So I have just given you one example to show you that. So just thank you for attending my lecture. Think all over this very carefully, and hope you can solve many problems in future in medical science or pharmaceutical science or any biomedical science fields. Thank you.